From the impacts you can see,
So this is an adult bark beetle. So you can see how small they are.
to those you can feel, our environment is changing. And with those changes comes creative solutions.
It's all pre-planned, pre-engineered, and it's just assembling the thing, so it makes it much simpler.
In collaboration with our sister stations across the region, our Environment Northwest team is exploring the animals and the people,
It's at 46 inches currently, so we're well below.
offering big clues that our planet is a little different. This is Environment Northwest. Hello and welcome to this Creme 2 Environment Northwest special. I'm Jeremy Legou. This ongoing series tracks changes happening in our environment. First up, a Creme 2 News exclusive. For the first time on TV, a couple from Stevens County shared their story about a grizzly bear that came onto their property and killed their chickens. Alexandra and Luke Davis live in a rural part of North Stevens County, about 30 miles past Colville. The area is home to many predators, including black bears, wolves, and cougars. But grizzlies are not supposed to be there. In the mountains of North Stevens County, it's quiet. Except for the occasional, but it's here, by the chicken coop, where that quiet was literally ripped apart.
The bear, when it came in and tore through here, it just tin canned the feed barrel and rolled it over actually about 10 feet from the house.
Alexandra and Luke Davis are used to wildlife in these parts,
We're used to the black bears coming in.
but this disruption was something different.
And this side of the coop was ripped off. He ripped that open and was getting chickens out of there.
This was a grizzly bear.
Grizzly bears, they just don't stop. Once they find something that they want, you don't just chase them off.
The signs were all there. The coop and fence ripped apart, tracks around their property,
When we started seeing tracks like that, that's when we really started locking down.
but they still hadn't actually seen the grizzly.
You didn't know where he was.
The couple reached out to wildlife officials who set up cameras.
You can see right there the fence and the hog panel, the grizzly just pushing it down. He has chicken in his mouth.
That's when it, like the mama bear and me comes out and I'm like, hey, this bear needs to be dealt with because that's too close.
Wildlife officials set a trap, and later that night,
I heard the door slam shut and he started rocking and roaring and really raising a ruckus when he got in there.
Do you think the grizzly had any fear whatsoever?
None. He was totally comfortable and just did what he wanted every time. He was definitely more than a nuisance. He was a threat and a danger, and it couldn't have that. I mean,
the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife says they occasionally document grizzlies in Northeast Washington.
They're definitely here.
But the people who live here say the signs are more than occasional.
We know how many are out here. We have to deal with them.
Grizzly bears used to live in most of Washington, but now they're endangered and only supposed to live in the Selkirk Mountains. So when they show up in yards like this,
A lot of the people are afraid to speak out about any of it because they don't want to get in trouble because they're protected.
the bear's protected, but the residents left exposed.
you can only do so much against an animal that huge and that fierce, and you definitely don't put yourself between them and what they're going after.
As the Davises settle into quiet winter,
Spring's right around the corner.
the threat of wildlife never goes away.
Yeah, bracing ourselves for spring when they wake up and they know where it's at.
Crossing the border to North Idaho now, where a literal bridge to nowhere has stood for decades. An overpass on I-90 in the Silver Valley has been unused for more than 50 years. Well, that's about to change. As our Environment Northwest team shows you, the bridge will soon welcome a new kind of traffic. The Silver Valley is home to an abundant, wide array of wildlife. It also has one of the busiest freeways in the entire region running right through it. And those two things don't always get along.
We have big game, so deer, elk, moose, bears, mountain lions. Laura Wolf, I'm a regional wildlife biologist with Idaho Department of Fish and Game. Typically animals will cross along the road and often will get hit by vehicles.
Wildlife crossings simply get animals from one side of the road to the other without crossing through traffic.
In the 2-mile stretch on either side of this overpass, there were about 75 animals hit in the last 10 years.
The stretch of road from the east side of Coeur d'Alene to the Montana border has the second highest density of roadkill anywhere along Interstate 90 stretching from Seattle to Boston.
And luckily, in the last 20 years, I've spent a lot of time doing animal and aquatic conveyance. I'm Kirsten Voorhees. I am a civil engineer by degree. For my career, I do animal corridors mostly. I do bridge systems.
Osborne, Idaho is Kirsten's backyard. But this old abandoned bridge, one day becoming a wildlife crossing, wasn't her idea.
A local guy, one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet, who really had a dream and a vision, and he bugged people for a good decade.
Carl Wilson was an avid outdoorsman and a member of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation who worked hard to make this happen. To him, it seemed simple. Put this bridge that's sat unused for more than 5 decades to good use.
So the main thing is to put up funnel fencing. So that's typically 8-foot fence that as they come towards the roadway, the fence just funnels them towards the either overpass or underpass, depending on what the structure is.
That makes this crossing much cheaper than others in the region. For reference, the crossing over I-90 on Snoqualmie Pass cost about $6.2 million.
And so it's whatever it costs to purchase and implement fencing. That's basically the cost of this structure. And that right now is probably somewhere around $400,000 to $500,000.
Money that comes from a grant through the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. The smallest one awarded because no major infrastructure changes are needed. Even the pavement on the bridge stays.
It just takes 1 or 2 brave cow elk and the rest will go.
A relatively easy solution to a dangerous problem, all thanks to one man's persistence.
He said, I need you to promise me that you're going to finish this thing if I don't make it.
Carl passed about a year ago, but his dream lives on. A dream that may lead to future crossings for the Silver Valley, helping to make the interstate a little safer for everyone.
So we carry it through, and we'll continue to carry it through no matter what it takes.
Well, in the past decade, things like our snowpack, our average temperatures, even our year-to-year weather patterns have all changed. But it doesn't impact just us. We're looking at 3 species across the Northwest facing decreasing population, destroyed habitats, and mysterious deaths. First, snow crab season was canceled for the 2nd time this year after 10 billion snow crabs vanished from Alaskan waters in just 3 years. Why? Scientists blame a marine heat wave and shrinking habitats. And Oregon is facing a declining salmon population. Experts chalk it up to a variety of things, but lately the snowpack, or lack thereof, has been a key cause. They say the snow eventually feeds the rivers salmon depend on, but that pack has become unreliable. And finally, a large number of newts are dying in the Olympic Peninsula, and scientists say it could be an indicator of what's happening in the environment. While the exact cause hasn't been identified yet, it's a big clue something has shifted, and it's causing them to take a closer look. Well, sometimes the smallest trees have the biggest impact. When we come back, we go inside a local lumber factory using a potential hazard to create a more sustainable future.
About 1 billion gallons of water a day flow through any given spot on the aquifer.
And later, 1 billion gallons may sound like a lot, but Spokane is over-consuming water and fast. Find out what it's doing to our ecosystem coming up in just 8 minutes. Well, across the state of Washington, there are more and more efforts to mitigate wildfire risk, but that doesn't mean the risk has gone away. In fact, the tiniest critters have a big impact.
So this is an adult bark beetle. So you can see how small they are.
One of the kind of side effects in some areas of this can be increased risk of wildfire. In stands like this where you have very high density amounts of dead trees, it can be a lot of fuel buildup.
Those small beetles burrow into the trees and lay eggs, causing the trees themselves to die. And once those trees die, they become the perfect fuel for wildfires. But inside a factory right here in eastern Washington, a new kind of wildfire prevention is emerging, and it's called mass timber. The state is hoping it'll provide a sustainable solution to wildfire risk and build some much needed housing. Inside a factory, where the sound of saws and lumber makes it difficult to think.
This is our CNC machines.
These massive boards are paving the way for some even bigger ideas.
So each one of these is one layer of the panel.
But it all starts with this. Some of the smallest trees in the forest. At 8 to 12 inches in diameter, these logs are too small for your typical mills, but plenty big enough to start a wildfire.
We have this environmental forest health crisis leading these catastrophic fires.
Washington's Forest Health Plan calls for reducing wildfire hazards, but until recently, removing these smaller pieces of wood was expensive, with cost limiting the amount of forest cleanup work the state could do.
We never had somebody who could buy that smaller diameter, and therefore we couldn't sell it. And when you can't sell it, it either rots on the forest floor or gets burned, and then creates an environmental challenge for us.
Enter mass timber. The factory in Spokane Valley is one of 2 mass timber facilities in Washington, offering the state a revenue source for the smaller wood as it seeks to clean up forests and prevent wildfires.
So in order to make the 60-foot long boards, we have to take all those little shorter 6 to 16-foot boards and finger join them together.
Mass timber refers to large wood products like these 60-foot panels. Mercer Mass Timber specializes in cross-laminate timber, or CLT. The process allows the company to make use of shorter boards, which it bonds together to create massive wood panels. Those panels are then cut to fit together.
We know exactly where that piece in all the millions of square feet, it's got a unique spot that it gets dropped into.
A process that's a lot like...
It's like putting a package of Lego together, following the directions. You know, every piece has a place for it.
And if you're wondering what those pieces can create, just take a peek outside the factory doors.
The 2 levels, the main levels, were done in one day in the middle of probably the worst blizzard of that winter.
Seattle-based Green Canopy Node worked with Mercer to build this test house, which came together 49% faster than a typical build, a significant time savings in a region starved for more housing.
It's all pre-planned, pre-engineered, and it's just assembling the thing, so it makes it much simpler.
The company will take what it learned from this build and use it on future products that are planned to go up in Seattle and Portland next year.
We're in the state of Washington. We can fly things the size of buildings through the air. We need to apply that mentality to helping to solve our housing crisis.
Back in the forest, the hope is that more mass timber-based construction will mean more forest cleanup and fewer large wildfires.
And now we've been able to take that environmental challenge of dying, dead, diseased trees and burn into the atmosphere and turn it into a wood product that actually can make our built environment cleaner and greener, and it also can help truly build at a faster pace and scale the kinds of homes that we need to address our housing crisis.
Well, don't go anywhere. A massive body of water right now is flowing underneath us. But thanks to greener grass on the other side, it's running low. The impacts when we come back.
Wolves were starting to make their way back here into Oregon, and we just realized that there really wasn't anybody advocating on behalf of wolves.
And later, an apex predator that disappeared from Oregon's wilderness decades ago is back. But the wolf's presence is polarizing. Hear from people on either side of the issue in just 8 minutes.
Flushing, wet. Springtime, we get a lot of corn snow. And then we have snert, which is snow dirt mix.
That's Dude, a longtime lifty up at Mount Spokane. He's an expert when it comes to their snowfall, and this year he knows the snow wasn't the best. Halfway through the 2024 winter season, eastern Washington and North Idaho mountains are seriously lacking in snow, but that wasn't necessarily a new thing. Data from the USDA shows there was a reduction in snowpack between 1955 and 2022. Today, the difference is how long that snow sticks around.
I think the biggest impact is going to be environmentally. It all depends on mountain snowpack is so important, especially for this region.
Sees those impacts on the mountain, but we'll start to see it in mountain runoff, increased fire danger, and longer fire seasons. Now, the Spokane Aquifer supplies drinking water for more than 500,000 people, but Spokane County uses more water per capita than almost anywhere else in the entire country. I spoke with the Spokane Riverkeeper to find out what's being done to preserve our region's water supply. Underneath us sits a massive body of water.
This water's flowing in, but not flowing back out to the river. Where's it going? It's dropping into our Spokane Valley Rathrum Prairie aquifer.
Jerry White is the executive director of the Spokane Riverkeeper.
About 1 billion gallons of water a day flow through any given spot on the aquifer.
That aquifer stretches from Lake Pend Oreille down to Lake Coeur d'Alene, through Spokane Valley and Spokane to the Columbia Basin. It is the most important natural resource in our region, supplying drinking water for more than 500,000 people.
The valley during the ice ages was filled with all of these cobbles that were transported in here that are the size of golf balls, grapefruits, right on up to refrigerator-sized rocks.
The rocks below us serve as a bed of where we live. The water of the aquifer is moving between them.
We're contributing to really major low flow events, and that does have a negative impact on our ecosystem.
Jerry's talking about our draw from the aquifer. Think of it like getting your favorite summer drink on ice. You take that first sip and it's almost gone. Our use of water does that same thing to the aquifer levels.
We're in the 98th percentile of water consumption in the nation.
While 1 billion gallons of water a day flowing underneath us seems like an infinite amount, it's not. We use more water per capita in Spokane County than almost anywhere else in the country.
The culprit really is single-family and multifamily residences irrigating green grass.
Industrial manufacturing, hospitals, agriculture, and at-home water use have an impact on flow levels. But it's the overwatering of hundreds of square miles of green grass that takes a toll. About 250 to 300 gallons per person per day is used in Spokane County. A vast majority of that to water grass.
The city of Spokane is really the first to implement drought measures that are based on river flow.
River flow from aquifer input is vital for the ecosystem in our area, from fish and wildlife to recreation and agriculture. The aquifer below us plays a vital role in the health of the Spokane River and the water we drink. For KREM 2 News, I'm meteorologist Jeremy Legoo. Still ahead on this Environment Northwest special, we're heading to rural Oregon, where a once declining wolf population is back. But not everyone is happy with the return. We'll tell you why after a quick break. After disappearing from the Oregon wilderness for decades, wolves have returned, and they're bringing controversy with them. Cale Williams with our Environment Northwest team spoke with people on either side of the debate.
The howl of a wolf is a powerful thing. For some, it conjures feelings of awe, reverence, wildness, and independence. For others, it means a threat nearby, something that could cost them and even disrupt their way of life. In Enterprise, Oregon, tucked into the northeast corner of the state, it's not hard to find folks on either side of the issue.
The first pack was here in Winona County.
John Williams is the chair of the Wolf Committee for the Oregon Cattlemen's Association.
Den was down here to your right behind this tree. It was known as the Wolf Highway in the early days.
For him, the problem with wolves is close to home.
Saw the wolves come by that house with the smoke on it. In 2009, we had our first pack. The next year, all of a sudden, they started killing livestock.
Williams has been tracking the increasing presence of wolves since they arrived. And he took us to some of the hot spots.
The tallest tree right there, they went into that thicket.
Wolves have been a contentious issue since settlers came to the West.
This is where the wolves went through. Tracks right here at this gate.
As apex predators, they mostly feed on deer and elk, but they also sometimes prey on livestock, setting up a conflict with ranchers that's lasted more than 100 years. That conflict is what led to their eradication from Oregon. With bounties put on their heads, the last of Oregon's original wolves was killed in 1947. But wolves would come back to Oregon, this time with protection under the Endangered Species Act, at least for a while. Those protections were lifted more than a decade ago, so Northeast Oregon seemed the perfect place to go to find out if these animals should be seen as an endangered species success story or something else entirely.
That's the camera.
After being gone more than half a century, Wolf sightings began to pop up in eastern Oregon in the mid-2000s.
We used to celebrate a lot when we would get like a picture of a wolf butt, and that was like, yeah.
As wolves from Idaho began dispersing west.
But now we actually get some really awesome pictures.
That was around the same time Rob Clavins, a field coordinator with Oregon Wild, started working on the issue.
Wolves were starting to make their way back here into Oregon, and we just realized that there really wasn't anybody advocating on behalf of wolves.
And it didn't take long for him to see the draw of wolf country.
About 10 years ago, my wife and I moved out here, and we'd really started to fall in love with the place.
What do you think we should put the camera?
Now, when he's not working for Oregon Wild, mounting trail cams or advocating for environmental issues,
Come on, pig.
Clavins runs a small working farm, a bed and breakfast outside of Enterprise, not far from John Williams' place.
Come on, guys. There you go. There you go.
So Clavins has watched firsthand as Oregon's wolf population has grown. From just a couple transplants from Idaho to more than 175 wolves, living in 24 packs. Those wolves have made their way out of northeast Oregon and now have territory in the Cascades, in southern Oregon, and have even established the first pack in California in more than a century. And while their numbers have grown, the sentiment that led to their extermination in Oregon,
this is a wolf highway,
remains.
I cannot underestimate the emotional trauma, the stress that the wolf is putting on ranchers.
There are 2 more parts to that story. You can find them and all of our Environment Northwest coverage on KREM 2+. It's free to download right now on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. That's it for our Environment Northwest special. Thank you for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.